welcome to the Power of Babel, the podcast where nothing's off the table. From Bible mysteries and strange phenomena to the questions that keep you up at night, we explore it all with curiosity and faith. I'm your host, Courtney, joined by my co-hosts Caleb and Jeremy. Together, we dive into the weird, the wonderful, and the wildly curious. So grab your coffee, open your mind, and let's babble. Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Power of Babel. We're here with another episode. I'm here with Caleb and Jeremy, my lovely co-host. Hello,
Greetings.
friends.
How are you?
Hello.
Doing well, yeah. So I haven't asked you in a couple episodes, I feel like. Are y'all reading any new books?
Yes. Yeah, I am. I don't know about you guys, but I actually just started one like yesterday. So I think I'm through the introduction and
Okay.
like some of that. I barely scratched the surface, but it's by an author who I've read copious amounts of their writing. Craig Keener,
Okay.
the New Testament scholar and historian. He is like one of the most prolific authors I have ever encountered. It seems like every couple months I look up and there's like, oh, he's got a new multi-volume commentary on Galatians or on I mean, it's crazy.
Did he do like the older New Testament commentary?
So
I feel like I have something of his.
I think you might have his New Testament background commentary.
Yeah, that's what I have.
So InterVarsity Press. That's a great volume for our viewers and listeners. It's called I think it's called the Dictionary it's commentary on the background of the New Testament. It's by InterVarsity Press, and the New Testament volume is edited by Keener, Craig Keener. The Old Testament one I think is John Walton, but yeah, he did that, but he's written tons of good stuff. He is a continuationist, a charismatic in his theology, and so he's written a significant amount on the Holy Spirit. He did a really groundbreaking work called Miracles, which is a multi-volume set that just sort of maps out the evidence for contemporary miracles. That has had scholars talking a lot because it's really, really well documented work. But the book that I'm started reading now is a book called Spirit Hermeneutics, and it is exactly what it sounds like. It is basically a Pentecostal. I'm using that in the broad sense. A Pentecostal hermeneutic, basically. Yes, we do all of the things like exegesis, and we use historical context and all of those things that everyone does when we approach the scripture according to genre and so forth. But I think the argument that he's building, and I've heard him talk about it in lectures and other things, is the argument that we should also read the scripture experientially. And we should also ask the Spirit to help us to discern, how do we apply this text to our current context?
Interesting.
And so it's a very charismatic and Pentecostal kind of approach, but also he's a first-rate scholar. So I'm really excited about it. I think it's going to be a good book. Yeah.
Interesting.
Sounds awesome.
Yeah.
What about you, Jeremy?
I'm not reading anything nearly as edifying, though it is wildly entertaining.
What
a
manga
little
are you on right now?
Yeah, that's the question.
Yeah.
I'm a little over halfway through a series called 20th Century Boys,
Okay.
which is like an insanely wild ride. So it was written before 2020, but it involves this cult leader who tries to take over the world by partially through engineering a virus and
Nice.
a bunch
Hantavirus?
and a bunch of
Sorry.
actually anyway but it involves a bunch of like middle-aged losers who were
Okay.
childhood friends who have to try to stop him, and it is an awesome like action thriller.
That actually sounds pretty interesting.
So many cool things. I'm on the part where they're trying to prevent the assassination of the Pope. It's great.
Wow.
Such a good series. I love it a lot.
Okay.
Yeah,
It's
I'm
really
reading comics too. I'm reading.
Y'all are
yeah,
always
look at him.
reading
I'm
nerd
reading them
things.
too.
I
No,
gotta
no,
look up
You're
what
not
I'm
the only
reading right
one
now.
having
No,
fun.
no. You misheard me. I said I'm reading comics. I'm not reading manga.
Ugh,
Um,
jeez, here we go.
I'm reading a good Batman comic that you might like, Court. It's called.
Love
I started reading this when it first came out, and then I fell off for some reason. It's called Batman Dark Patterns.
Okay.
And it's It's really good.
Yeah.
I bet you like it too, Jeremy.
I've heard good things about Dark Patterns. I
Yeah.
haven't read any of it yet.
It's
but yeah.
old school detective Batman.
Interesting. Well, I had to refer to my handy app called Fable
Oh,
Nice.
because I really couldn't remember. Here's the thing. I'm not reading. Like, let's be honest. I am just not. It's been a crazy few months. But so I'm still working on the Iliad. I'm still getting through it.
Nice.
I have made some progress in the Cost of Discipleship.
Okay.
I think that's what I had originally last started was the Cost of Discipleship, and I'm really liking it. Like really, really liking it. Which I liked his other work too, Life Together. But other than that, I don't think that I've really read anything.
Yeah. By the way, we're not sponsored by Fable. Just to let you know.
No,
Although we
but-
would love to be.
but maybe
Hit us up.
you want to.
Yeah.
No,
It's-
I did read. Okay, so I did just finish a fiction called The Orphan House.
Hmm.
And it was like I don't really know what I was expecting from it. Our work had this like take a book, get a book kind of thing at one of our staff meetings. And so I was just like, oh, I'll grab that. I didn't really know what to expect from it, but it was actually a really good like mystery novel.
Okay.
Just a really light read. I mean, it was, a few hundred pages and I finished it within a couple of days. It was
Okay.
just like that.
Nice.
Can't do that with the Iliad though.
No,
Sorry.
not quite. Yeah.
But I do think once I finish The Cost of Discipleship, I'm going to go back. I'm going to reread a book, which I don't know that I've ever done this except for maybe Redeeming Love.
You've never done what?
Like reread a book.
Are you kidding me?
No, I'm not kidding. I don't besides Redeeming Love because I loved that book as a teenager and like growing up.
Mm.
So I reread that some. I don't know that I've really revisited a book ever.
Oh, that's so crazy.
So
I don't know about you,
I
Jared,
get
but
that though.
I reread all the time.
I don't reread often. I have before, but I get that because there's tons of other books to read,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
For me, if I'm gonna reread a book, it has to be a great book. But also because it's a great book, I have this kind of like, no, I have to be in the right frame of mind to really appreciate it.
I'm gonna go back to it.
Which
yeah.
is why like I haven't reread The Lord of the Rings in like probably 6 or 7 years at this point.
Yeah. I did reread.
I reread The Lord of the Rings like every 2 or 3 years. Yeah.
He reread it with me. I did reread East of Eden when we did it as like
That's
a book
true,
club or
yeah.
whatever. But no, I've been on this like journey, I guess, to like curate a home library. And so I've gotten rid of all the books that I have in my library are books that I would want
Yes.
to reread, but I've not done it. And so I'm like, I was just looking at some of my books and I was like, I think I want to reread Digital Minimalism.
Okay. Yeah.
Just because and spoiler, that's kind of what we're going to be talking about today is social media and just our life with it. And so I've just felt myself just kind of needing that in my life
Yeah.
recently. So I think I'm going to go back to that.
Yeah, that's my rule of thumb. I have a big library. I've got, I don't know, maybe like close to 500 volumes.
That's wild.
But my rule of thumb for whether it stays in the library is this something that I intend to read again?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if it is, I keep it. If it's not, I get rid of it. Even if I like the books, some books I really, really like, but I know I'm not going to read this again.
Yeah.
I'll get rid of it. But yeah, rereading is good because sometimes you need to be reminded of things, but then also, especially with nonfiction stuff, but with fiction stuff, sometimes it really benefits from a reread. So,
Yeah.
And sometimes it hits different depending on
Your stage of
where-
life.
yeah.
That's true. Yeah.
like
That's true.
and the really good books, you don't have to be worried about still appreciating them. If you reread them, chances are you'll find new things to appreciate.
That's
Yeah.
right. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna commit the rest of this year to doing some rereads,
Do it.
maybe just because I'm kind of stuck right now with my reading, and I'm
Mm.
just like nothing is like catching my eye that I want to read, and I'm like, there's some books that I could benefit from.
For
So
sure,
yeah,
yeah.
I'm gonna dive in. Have y'all read Digital Minimalism before?
I have. I think I read it. I think I borrowed your copy.
Okay, yeah.
I haven't, but I'm familiar with the concept. I know it kind of made a splash a little bit, but like what is like the main conceit or like the main kind of like driving idea behind that?
He goes in, he gives some like statistics on just the digital age and how it affects our person and our mental health and all of that. So somewhat of like giving some stats and information, but I would say almost like a self-help kind of genre,
Yeah.
in that like he gives like practical ways of like, okay, this is why a lot of digital in your life is bad. Here's how you can like alter that. So he talks about social media, and just, I mean, really just our phones, video games, TV, and all of that, just in general, how it affects us, and then how we can take practical steps. Sometimes, and I feel like it's this way with a lot of self help books. I'm trying to think. I think John Mark Comer writes some too this way, where it's like, okay, you might need to chill just a little bit. He kind of like overzealous on
Yeah.
some things, but there's definitely,
I found that too when I read the book too. He leans a little hit because he sort of lays out the negatives of the digital age,
Mhm.
and particularly, like you said, social media and things like that. But then he sort of takes that, and that is the most compelling part of the book to me, where he's just like, here's the data
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
what the
Yeah.
effects are. I think he does kind of lean a little bit kind of Luddite a little bit in the second half of the book, where he's kind of just like, okay, therefore you should abandon
Yeah.
Yeah.
technology, which is not a feasible kind of model.
Yeah. Well, and that's kind of the the tension that I would like to talk about today. Another book that I've read it was this year, fairly recently, was The Anxious Generation.
Mm.
And
I've wanted to read that. I haven't read
I
that.
forget who it's by. I think the book does a really good job because it does get into some like political things, for lack of a better word, but I think the author, I wish I could remember his name, does a good job of, he doesn't lean to one side or the other, even like spiritually, like, it's just very like matter of fact, and giving just a lot of it's a very like scientific, I guess, driven
Yeah,
book.
data driven. Yeah.
Yeah, for specifically for young people, and
Yeah.
just the effects of technology and really social media,
Yeah.
in young children. So,
Yeah, I think that we're probably at a point culturally
mhm.
now, where um, even apart from the data, because there's lots of, and that's the thing that's going to continue to evolve, because the problem is we're on the early end of the data, because the technological revolution is really still happening. And so you really don't have a lot of good like retrospective research material to do on like what was the effect of this until after the fact. So it's
Right.
probably going to be years in the future where we're going to look back on this period and say, here's how significant this was. This is what
Yeah.
happened to people. But
Have you seen the it's AI, but this is so funny. It's so contradictive. Of the like renderings of humanity in like 100, 200
I haven't
years.
seen that.
And it's like we look like cavemen, but we're like hunched over in like our screen.
Yeah.
It's really like, it's unsettling, but it's like, ooh, I don't know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we're on our way.
Yeah.
But I was going to
Well-
say that we do, culturally speaking, I think, even apart from the data, like
Mhm.
people who haven't even maybe read any of these kind of books, I think culturally people are probably at a point where we're just sort of intuitively aware
Yeah.
of the fact that things like social media and the internet age is having a negative effect upon us. I think a lot of people can just sort of sense that, whether they can back it up with numbers or not.
Let me
Yeah.
give you a touchstone for that. So this is a fairly recent news story. Some of this is still ongoing. This is from an article from March 25th from NPR called titled "Jury Finds Meta and Google Negligent in Social Media Harms Trial." This is the first paragraph. It's a longer story. Go read it. You can find tons of other reporting on this because people are calling it a landmark decision. I think it probably will be. This is the first paragraph. A California jury on Wednesday found that Meta and Google were to blame for the depression and anxiety of a woman who compulsively used social media as a small child, awarding her $6 million in a rare verdict, holding Silicon Valley accountable for its role in fueling a youth mental health crisis.
Wow.
The author of this article goes on to point out, I think perceptively, that the lawyer who prevailed for that woman and helped win her that judgment focused not on the content of social media, so not the stuff that she was seeing on it, but how the apps were engineered to encourage addiction
Yeah.
and to encourage, just like use after use after use without guardrails for minors or young children.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think it's especially interesting. So I have seen a source, I'm not sure if it's this one or another one, that said that internally, Meta had memos that said engagement of 11-year-olds is higher than 13-year-olds, right? Like they use it more frequently.
Mm.
What's the problem with that? The problem is officially children below 13 are not allowed to use it.
Right.
So
Right.
if that is true, if they had this internal memo, they knew there were children that who even by their own self-imposed policies were too young to use it. And apparently they knew how to collect that data, but
Right.
apparently they just let the kids keep using it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think this is probably going to be, I mean, if you do a Google search on this, one of the things that pops up is tons of ads from different law firms. I think one day we're going to see commercials about this like we do or we used to more often about mesothelioma and asbestos.
Yeah, like class action suits.
Class action, and it's going to be, one thing after another. There's another case in New Mexico where it was a social media company. I believe it was YouTube, I believe. So Google was found was found also liable for negative mental health. But what's interesting is that they're now in the second phase of the trial where they're trying to figure out if YouTube created a public nuisance. And the state, which is the one bringing this case, is currently arguing that Google should be responsible for setting up a massive mental health initiative to the tunes of billions of dollars to help try to remedy the harm that they have allegedly caused.
Wow.
And and yes, we know we are on YouTube, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Full
It's the
disclosure, and other
oxymoron,
social
yeah.
media sites. But this is the reality. I mean, I'm increasingly of the opinion that social media should be regulated like we regulate cigarettes.
Mm.
The
Interesting.
problem is that one of the easiest ways to do that is having some sort of universal online ID is something that I'm also not comfortable with for various reasons.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
It's like how do you
yeah, we're
Yeah, 'cause
caught between Scylla and Charybdis here. And it's one of those things to where like the remedy might do more harm than the thing itself, but in different ways and in ways that might be more socially acceptable
Well,
than
Well, don't you think that with your digital footprint, you already kind of have an online ID? I mean, I don't.
yes and no, because
Yes and no.
here's the problem. The problem. Well, I mean, I think we've made clear. I've made clear. I won't speak for them. Go watch our MK Ultra episodes and stuff. That in terms of the people who would be doing the regulating, namely government agencies, I don't trust them as
Right.
any more than I trust the people in Silicon Valley. So because the problem is yes, you have a digital footprint, right, where you can be identified, but what we're really talking about is more like a license wherein they can restrict, govern, and limit your access and use, and determine what sorts of things you can look at,
Yeah.
what kind of activity
I
you
get
can
you.
engage in.
Yeah.
That's where the real problem
Yeah.
comes in, because we'll get there. We already have a problem of information, and whether or not true information is being disseminated. And if we start ceding power to agencies or organizations to be able to determine what
Yeah.
kind of information, I think that, like Jeremy said, that might actually even be worse than the Wild West that we're currently experiencing.
Yeah. Before we get too deep into it, just to kind of hang out with the children aspect.
Yeah.
I don't quite know how, other than parenting, how you really manage that. I know that it's a huge crisis. The difference, the problem is that as an adult, and we can talk about our own personal experience as well, but like I've I have my brain is fully developed, and I know that I've been online too long. Like I know I'm addicted to it and I need to stop. A child's brain does not understand that.
Yeah.
It's not fully developed, and it's developing based on what they are watching and seeing.
Yes.
It is truly, if you really get into just the brain development behind it, it is damaging our
Yeah.
children.
Yeah.
And I don't know the I guess solution to it other than keep your kids off of it.
Yeah. And I mean, I don't have kids of my own, but I have, little kids in my life that I'm
Yeah.
related to. And thankfully, their parents are all very conscientious and they're
Right.
not quite old enough to be fighting those battles of like, well, all of my friends have Instagram accounts. Why can't I have one?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
like, every time I hear of a parent that's like, no, you're not going to have a cell phone until you're like, a freshman in high school or something like that. I'm like, yes, good job.
Yeah.
Because I
Yeah.
feel like maybe our generation is possibly the last generation
Yeah.
to grow up without the internet in their pocket,
Yeah,
right?
we're
Like we
we're
had the internet in our pocket at some point of, growing up, maybe high school, maybe college, whenever, but like we didn't grow up with that.
Yeah.
Like we didn't grow up with constant access to screens with unlimited, browsing potential or unlimited feeds that just never end, so you can doom scroll forever. And I honestly feel like, having been a teacher, having been a tutor in various contexts, I honestly feel like that's a massive advantage that we have had over the generations that have come after us.
and before, but because this is an interesting thing. I was talking to someone about this the other day. This very thing you're talking about, where our age group is a historically very unique in the sense that, like you said, we straddle this period in history where we are old enough to remember the analog age,
Mhm.
right? Where things had not become completely digitized. The personal computer revolution was in its infancy.
Mhm.
And there's an amazing clip. I love this. You've probably seen it because it's become viral in recent years. But there's a clip. I think it's like the Today Show, and it's like Katie Couric and others, and it's the year I was born, 1994. And they're asking one another, "What is internet? What is this? What is internet? What is that thing?" And then another person says, "Oh, I think it's that network of computers, isn't it?" And they're like debating. It's
Yeah.
hilarious because we see this now and think how absurd. It's like saying, "What is a light bulb?"
Yeah.
But the interesting thing about this is not only do we have this unique retrospective thing where we can, like you said, you can look at this and say this is bad because I know what the world is like without it. Where young people, people younger than us, don't have that luxury.
Yeah.
I remember. I'll try not to ramble on too long here, but I remember when this sort of clicked in my head that this was going to be a problem was years ago now. My nephew, Ben, shout out to Ben if you're watching. He's like, high school age now, but when he was a little kid, like 3 years, maybe even like 2 years old, he was really young. I remember watching him come in to our house and him walking over to a photograph that was framed and him trying to swipe it because he assumed it might be a screen.
Wow.
Yeah.
And he was
Yeah.
really little, and I thought, we're doomed.
He was cooked.
Yeah.
Right, because this is the
yeah.
world that he lived. But the other interesting thing is, and this is where I'll stop, is the generation before us who lived primarily, most of their lives were in the analog age, and only here towards the latter half or towards the end of their life, they're exposed to this digital. It's a quagmire that they don't know how to navigate. And I think they are susceptible to misinformation and to things like this
You're so right.
because they don't know how to navigate this. And in the same way that the young people who are growing up in this environment, we actually are I'm saying we're special.
We
Yeah.
are special.
Because we have this perspective on both ends of that.
No, I
that
mean,
they don't.
yeah, our
Yeah.
generation is like messed up in various ways, like
Yeah.
all generations are. But this is one of the things where we do, because of the historical, vantage point that we have from how we grew up. It is true. And what's interesting is that younger generations, they know how to use the technology, but when something breaks, they have no idea how to fix it. Like I have a friend who's teaches engineering, like at a large school. It's a good school. And he has kids who like don't know how to like navigate computer directories in engineering in college.
Yeah.
Wow.
It blows my mind.
Yeah.
Like it's nuts.
Yeah. Everything's automated for them. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I know that this is kind of like the tension that I feel because I don't know about you guys. Let's just talk about that. Social media. What is your experience with it?
Complicated.
Also
Are
complicated.
you on social media? Where are your boundaries with it at, I guess, is my question.
Are you, Jeremy? I don't even know if
So
you are.
this is a complicated question, and I have kind of like a story behind this that I
Yeah.
don't know if y'all want to get into or not.
Please
but
share. Sure.
so I have a pseudonymous Reddit account that I use for my hobbies.
Oh no, not Reddit.
Yeah, I know, right? But like hobby Reddit is less offensive than normal Reddit.
I like
normal
parts of Reddit, yeah.
even hobby Reddit is kind of like awful, but it's not as awful as the other parts of Reddit. I mean, we can get into that, but
I'm not on Reddit.
I don't have Facebook. I do have a YouTube account, also pseudonymous, that will probably never see the light of day. And the reason I'm pseudonymous is because one of the reasons I canceled or just like stopped my Facebook account was because like in the past when I was in school, I faced like a minor cancellation attempt because this was back during the Obergefell ruling. And
Yeah.
I saw a bunch of my Christian friends freaking out. And then I like posted something like that I thought was very mild, like, hey, don't freak out about this. And then some of the other people at my school found out about it, and it was like, the typical digital lynch mob. And so I mean, thankfully that didn't really end up, hurting me or derailing my life or anything. But it was just kind of an eye-opening experience. And one of the things that I learned from that was you do not have to interact with people who hate you.
Yeah.
You don't. And also, I found that it was interesting that I realized from that I was interacting with Facebook like I was curating my own, like I was doing my own PR for me, right? And I'm sure everybody who's used social media has this kind of thing where like it is something that fundamentally doesn't encourage authenticity. Because social media, you are not just interacting with your closest friends. You're not just posting stuff for your closest friends. Like it's like, oh, your step cousin's brother's aunt who sent you a friend request 2 years ago that you just accepted because you didn't want to be mean.
Yeah.
And this leads to weird pseudo-social dynamics that I think are at the very least inauthentic, are also kind of like corrupting. And I don't judge anybody who uses social media, but like for me, I reached a point where I realized it does not encourage, anything good in my own life. It causes me to relate to other people weirdly. It gives people who hate me ammunition for hating me. And also, like, if you don't pay for a service, you are the product.
Yeah.
Like these large corporations who are like monetizing me and my eyeballs. We live in the attention economy, and many people have said that. I think it's very true. And so it's like, not only is this making me miserable, I found out, but it's also like causing other people to profit off of that. And I just found that to be really perverse. So there was a point at which I just canceled Facebook. And I do have a little bit of social media now, but it's more to like kind of like curate like hobby stuff.
Yeah.
And it's all pseudonymous because I'm a big, in my opinion, you cannot be too careful online. And it's not pseudonymous because I'm saying things on there that I don't actually believe or, have like any kind of that stuff, or I'm ashamed of what I believe and whatever. But it's because like it's the Wild West out there.
Yeah.
Like even showing my face on this podcast when we decided to do it was kind of
that was a big thing.
Yeah.
We could tell you were a little bit like, I don't know.
Yeah. So, and I witness it too. Like there's some, streamers that I watch on YouTube, and every now and then they have to like deal with ridiculous stuff that like just random hateful people on the internet do.
Yeah.
And anyway, that's my ramble.
No,
That's very interesting. Because I completely like sympathize with everything that you're saying. My own relationship with social media is complicated because I feel the same sentiment that Jeremy does. But I have wrestled with this conflict of how I feel about its negative aspects, and also some other intuitions that I have about not abandoning it. Which is a difficult thing, and I'm not even sure I'm 100% sold on it. But I'm of two minds. I'm of the mind that Jeremy just described for why this is something that I should seriously consider abstaining from, frankly. But also, I'm of the mind that if we are truly, and I guess the future sort of is open with this question, but if we are um, headed towards or even in a reality wherein it has become the public square, and there actually have been legal arguments about that concerning free speech and whether or not certain tech companies can regulate what is said there, and some of the arguments have been in our current society, this is the public square. And so if that's the case, I worry, because it's the Wild West, I worry sometimes that if those who have a robust Christian worldview retreat from these spaces, then we yield the spaces entirely to the voices that are antithetical to what we consider to be the truth and reality.
Yeah.
Which is a danger. I mean, we've talked about on this podcast. I think all of us are agreed about the good intention and the negative impact of things like fundamentalism, which have kind of done this in other respects, not in the social media age necessarily, but retreating from certain public spaces because of the wickedness and because of the negative impacts that it has upon us and others. And yet, when you do that, you risk ceding ground that will be very, very difficult to regain. And so there's a part of me that thinks, well, yes, it's almost a necessary evil to participate in this thing that I think is on the whole really kind of a negative thing, a bad thing for our world and for us as individuals, but it may be something that's necessary to continue to do with a sober mind and selectively. That maybe that's the key, is selectively engaging while being cognizant of the risks involved.
Well, and that sounds like very similar to what Jeremy is doing
Yeah.
already.
Yeah.
I'll be honest, like, this is probably one of my biggest struggles in life, is my relationship with social media.
Yeah.
I don't know why. I have a very, like, I don't know, maybe I don't want to like say that about myself, but I feel like I have like a very addictive type of personality.
Mhm.
That's why I have very strong views, like personal convictions about like drugs and alcohol, because I've never opened myself up to that, because I know that if I do, it will not be good for me.
Right.
And so like I do struggle, and my husband like jokes with me all the time, because at least once a week I'm deleting my apps on my phone.
I've noticed. Yeah.
I mean, just like yeah, people will try and send me like reels and stuff, and I'll respond like 2 days later, but I'll take at least 24 hours a week. I think that's like good for me, but
Yeah.
you know, my husband's just like, you just delete it to just like add it back. But I think that's like the struggle that I have with it, is because I see the negative effects that it has, not really on my like mental, you know, what's the word I'm looking for?
Your
Health.
mental health. Yeah.
I mean, I understand that, but it's not that. It's more like just the time consuming aspect of it. I will. I mean, if I allow myself, I will just scroll for hours,
Yeah.
and it's like, what is this really doing me good for?
Yeah.
And so like I guess it was like 3 to 4 years ago, I went off of it completely, like deleted my accounts and everything for a solid year. Like, it was actually after I had read Digital Minimalism, I was like, I'm just going to do what this guy says, take it to the extreme. And it was an amazing year, honestly. I mean, like, truly looking back, I was like, and then so I asked myself, like, why did you add it back? But it's that tension, it's that struggle of, I almost feel this pressure, for lack of a better word, to show up in that space. Especially like running the nonprofit that I run. You almost have to be on there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so if I'm operating those accounts, then like I have to have a personal one. And if I have a personal one and like other people are, you know, interacting with my nonprofit platform, I feel this pressure to like, you know, interact with, you know, from my personal one. I don't know. It's just, there is such a tension that I feel. And that's why I say, I think it's my biggest struggle in life. Is just like, I truly don't know what I should do about it.
Yeah.
And I'm glad we're having this
Yeah.
conversation today.
Yeah,
Hopefully I'll be enlightened by it.
I mean, don't get me wrong. Like, I don't want to give you the impression from my rant that I'm not, not a habitual user of the internet. I am. Like, I
course.
probably use the internet way too
Yeah.
much.
Yeah.
And it's just, yeah. So I think everybody, what it sounds like from this conversation is like everybody kind of has their own line, and it's important to use discernment. Whatever your line is,
Yeah.
for a season, you may have to step away entirely.
Yeah.
For a season, you may use it in a particular way that you wouldn't always use, whatever. But this is such a complicated issue, and I think social media by its very nature becomes so embedded in your life that I don't think there is one solution for it, other than maybe don't give it to your kids.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and
Yeah,
thinking
but
what,
even that's kind of tough, right? Because like, if you're teenagers are like just assumed to have social media.
yeah.
So I couldn't even imagine trying to navigate that as a parent,
Yeah.
where your kid is like in middle school and like, I need Instagram,
Yeah.
and the data, the horror stories, all that, and you're like, I don't think you need it, but they're like, all my friends have it, and
Yeah. I think there definitely needs to be hard and fast rules for children and regulation.
Mhm.
I don't know what that is. But even going back to what Caleb said, from a Christian standpoint and us being in that realm and the necessity of that, I think I think as Christians and churches, we need to have these kind of conversations. Like, what are the implications of social media with our walk with Christ?
Yeah.
Because when you think about I find myself just being so, if I scroll a lot, I'm so overstimulated
Yeah.
that my daughter and my husband get on my nerves, and it's just like I can't so my relationship with them is affected. And then my time is spent and I'm so just drained mentally that I don't want to read the Bible. My brain is just done. My time is taken up, so I don't have time to spend with God. I think there's so many different ways that it's affecting our walk with Christ. And so I think it's important that the church, I say capital C church, has these type of conversations and like helps people to navigate what this looks like for your Christianity.
Yeah,
I don't know.
because there's a bunch of different ways I could take that. I mean, because what you're saying is so true that part of the issue for me is because social media is geared toward, it's not even geared toward, it's really kind of predicated upon the idea of engagement,
Mm-hmm.
right? This is how they make their money,
Right.
right? And so because of that, and by the way, since that's the source of the income, of the financial gain, nothing else underneath that matters. Everything else comes secondary to engagement, which means that that things like truth
Mm-hmm.
or morality or any of those sorts of things are completely secondary if considered at all.
Yeah, it doesn't
Um,
matter what you're seeing or posting.
Right.
Are people engaging
As
with
long
it
as
so I
it's
can make money?
exactly, as long as they're getting engagement and as long as they're able to turn
Yeah.
that into revenue, then the rest is irrelevant.
There's a term for it's called engagement farming.
Yes.
And it's so one of the things that's happened in Twitter in the last few years is that like if you are like a paid member of Twitter, you can monetize your tweets. And if you monetize your tweets, it's monetized based on engagement and interaction. So you have like a lot of times it ends up being bots or whatever that will have these accounts that just say the most out and post the most outlandish things just to drive engagement.
Yeah, it incentivizes things like rage and crazy things like that. So
Yeah.
it actually promotes not truth or not wisdom or common sense or anything like that. It promotes and incentivizes extreme things,
Yeah.
fringe ideas, conspiratorial ideas. Right? These are the kinds of things that are incentivized, promoted because these are the things that generate revenue. And if this is the case, then I really worry. I really worry for believers
Yeah.
specifically, not just we've talked about this before about the ability to discern the truth, right? To be, having the spirit of discernment and having operating in wisdom and not being tossed to and fro by every wind of doctrine, right? And you can apply that to more than just theological matters. I mean, but being swayed and pulled in different directions. I worry about that aspect, but I also worry about part of what you were sort of gesturing towards, Court, which is um, because it is crying out for our engagement, whether we are preoccupying our mind, our energy towards things that don't actually matter.
Yeah.
And very often for believers, it's cloaked in a visage of spirituality, so that we're duped into thinking that it does matter. Right. And so you see people get engaged in these debates and mob mentality things and all these things where they're spending all their time or they're following some breadcrumbs. I mean, maybe we might have to do an episode about Aliens Part 2, but like recently there has been a huge social media controversy among Christians, by the way, who were following certain influencers on social media who were saying that they had inside information about UFO disclosures and things like that. And it's caused a huge storm of people fighting with each other and things like this. And I look at this from the outside, and then I listened to a podcast the other day because I'm habitually on the internet. And it was a podcast of unbelievers, and they were just making fun of these people who were Christian influencers. And I'm thinking, wow, what a wasted opportunity, because time, resources, and mental faculties are focused on things that are not gospel-centric, because we've gotten caught up in this thing that the whole world is caught up in, just in our own little niche corner.
I was going to say, shouldn't a Christian influencer just be an evangelist?
Yeah. You would think so, yeah. But instead, what has happened is you get this a pastiche of Christianese sort of applied to things that are really that you can find on any secular person's page. I think it's a matter of being in the world and not of the world. What exactly does that look like? How can we maintain, and this is the $1 million question, is like, how can we maintain a presence in these spaces and not be corrupted by the things that are corrupting everyone else?
Yeah.
It's difficult.
Yeah. And I just worry too, like, we give so much time and energy to these things that, well, what are they really giving back to us in the end?
Yeah.
But, and I just keep coming back to neglecting the thing that gives us the true life. And we don't leave space for even just like, I don't struggle with this, but I know of people that just can't sit in silence. They can't sit with their own thoughts. I'm actually like a very like reflective person, and I love to like just go on walks and like sit in silence, but I'm afraid that it's causing people to just not be able to, like, I have to put in a podcast. I have to listen to music. I have to get on and just scroll because I can't like sit with myself.
Yeah.
But also like, then if you're not allowing the silence, then when does God speak?
Yeah.
And so it's like, okay, not only is that just not good for you, like you need to like reflect on yourself, but also like what space are you allowing for God to speak to you? And I know he speaks, through scripture and all of that too, but just the lack of like silence. I feel like my daughter is the worst with this. And I don't know if this is just, well, it's probably her own struggles anyways, but she has to have something playing all the time. If she's like, she wants music is her big thing. She wants music playing all the time. She's sick. She's not on social media, or, we limit a lot of her digital stuff. But I don't know. There's something about the silence that we don't have anymore.
Well, it's connected. So the reason why this engagement farming and so forth works is because there's something about human nature that is predisposed to be like that, right? So even though she's not on social media yet, there's still these tendencies that, given the opportunity, that this is what we will do. And I think theologically it's connected to this idea of Sabbath rest, right? I mean, you're talking about being able to sit with the silence.
Yeah.
But because of our fallenness, we were designed to experience Sabbath rest in the kingship of God, right? That's kind of what Sabbath rest is about, right? So God creates this temple garden, and he's going to rest, basically take up his throne and sit and enjoy his creation with his creation and his imagers. And because of sin entering into the world, we are severed from that, experiencing that Sabbath rest. And so there is this sort of restlessness about us. And we feel that, or we try to sort of express that in all sorts of ways. And all many of the ways that we sort of do that are really destructive things, right? We are making ourselves busy with busyness for the sake of busyness in a lot of cases. And I think that's destructive.
Should we call this an anti-Sabbath device?
Yeah, I think you should put it away for Sabbath. That's for sure. Yeah.
Well, that's an interesting perspective too, and I'm going to tell that to Kevin, my husband. I'm taking a Sabbath when I do my once a week deletion of my apps.
There you go.
It's a social media Sabbath.
I actually think you're right. Yeah. Take that, Kevin.
Yeah, take that. He doesn't even watch us, you fool. So I think maybe we talked about this earlier, but I just want to kind of bring it back too, because I think Jeremy had mentioned just feeling like this, like they're making money off of me. I think something else that I would like to touch on is just the consumerism and materialism of social media, and also how that impacts our spiritual life. Did you want to say something about it?
All these online viral products.
Oh, geez.
The TikTok shop, but not only that, Labubu.
I don't understand
Nido.
the Labubu. I don't know what that is.
It's
the
demonic,
dumplings.
I think.
But yeah, there's something new now. The dumplings.
There's something new every
Yeah.
month or two, and it's all fueled by viral, usually like shorts or TikToks or stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it just creates
More shorts
this-
coming your way, by the way.
Yeah. it just creates this artificial feeding frenzy.
Yeah.
And it's like, and because of, the stuff I'm interested in, you see it in like comic books too, where like, somebody starts hyping up a comic book on social media and everybody has to have it. They're not going to read it. They just have to have it because it's like the hot book that week or whatever. And it's like, it's crazy how, like we like to think that we're like independent thinkers, we're rational, whatever, we're smart, we make good decisions for ourselves. But like, we are so like influenceable.
Yeah.
And if it's not,
Easily manipulated.
and if it's not Labubu, it's something else for you, right?
Yeah,
It's
for
something
sure.
else. Like everything you're interested in has it, right? I mean, we can connect this to the rise of sports betting. We can connect this to like, like car culture. Like if you remember a few years ago during the pandemic, everybody, what was that Kia that everybody had to have? Like it was was it the
Kia?
Telluride? Or
Probably, yeah.
what I forget
don't know.
I don't know. I'm not a car guy, but there was a particular type of Kia, a Kia of all types of cars.
Hey, I drive a Kia. Be careful.
No, they're
You
great.
could be
They're
driving
great
a Kia.
cars, right? But they're not like luxury cars. Like we're not talking about like a a Ferrari or something.
Yeah.
Everybody
Yeah.
had to have this car, and they were
So funny.
paying like 50% over MSRP for this Kia. And it's like, what is this?
Yeah.
Right? What is
Yeah.
this? Even some of the like scalping and stuff during the pandemic with the hand sanitizer and all
Toilet
that.
paper.
And everybody was like, "Oh, I heard toilet paper's flying off the shelves. We better go buy." And everything, conspiracy theories. This is another type. If you look
Oh,
at
my
information as an
goodness.
economy, and it's like if it's not going to get you one way, it's going to get you another way, and it's just kind of designed to suck you into the hive mind.
Yeah.
Yeah, the meme theory. I mean, I think we've talked about this before too. It's like this is why I say that some of this, a lot of this, is actually not. This is why I'm hesitant about some of the things where people are wanting to hold I get it. I understand why the impetus for the idea of, well, let's hold some of these tech giants responsible for the damage that they're doing to society. I get the idea behind it, but there's another part of me that thinks like, actually, what things like social media and the virality on the internet and things like that is doing, it's actually not making people any different than they are. What it's doing is it's
Yeah,
amplifying
it's
the
highlighting.
most negative features of human nature.
Yeah.
And and this is evidenced by the fact that the thing you're talking about like, oh, everyone has to go and go after this thing, whatever this thing is. Like, I remember when this happened, and this is pre-social media,
Mhm.
because of the very nature of the thing I'm talking about here, which is, I remember everyone doing this about the first iPhone.
Yeah.
Right? When it came out, people camping out in front of stores for it and doing crazy things, because of this. And this is before people blame the iPhone for the kind of digital age that we're in some ways. But this is not a new thing.
No.
No, I mean,
This
when you
is
have
You're right.
magazines, but
Beanie
pre the
Babies.
digital
Beanie
age.
Babies,
Yeah.
Yeah. You're right. This is not new, but social media, I think, like you were saying,
it amplifies.
amplifies and accelerates it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, it used to be the fact that you would have, like, one big viral consumerist trend every, year or two.
Yeah.
Now it's like every month.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
At
like
least that's how I
Arnold
don't know.
in Jingle All the Way trying to
Yeah.
get that toy for his
Yeah.
kid.
Maybe that's
I'm not a
recency.
pervert.
Yeah. Maybe that's recency bias. But I really do think it has accelerated and
No,
intensified.
I think it
Yeah.
has. And here's the other angle of that too, which is, not only has it accelerated and intensified, but our awareness of it in other people,
Mm.
by definition, because of the nature of social media, is astronomically more than it was before. Because in the analog age, we may not have been aware of what was happening in other people's minds and lives, whereas now it's right in our face all the time.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so things like mob mentality, because now we have in the old days, in order to be in a mob, you have to get up and grab a pitchfork and a torch and go somewhere, right?
Yeah.
Back in my day, the mob took some work, dang
It
it.
took work, right? And so that excluded some of the people who would join the mob. Now, you can literally sit on your couch and join the mob with your thumbs, right?
Yeah.
And so people just do it because it's a high reward in terms of the endorphins that they get when they do it, and it's low risk because they don't actually have to do anything.
Yeah.
And so you
Yeah.
get keyboard warriors, right?
Mhm.
So,
Yeah, the worst kind.
and I'm preaching to the choir here, guys. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and cancel culture, I feel like, has its ebbs and flows. I do feel like, at least on the side of, I'm not on TikTok, so I can't say like on the side of talk that I'm on Instagram, I guess. Um, I don't
Follow
see.
the Power of Babel on TikTok, though.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, we are on there, I guess. But I feel like, what am I trying to say? I feel like people are showing up more in these spaces and not being afraid to say. I feel like we're the pendulum is swinging a little bit away from, I don't know, what do y'all think about that, about cancel culture? People are going to be keyboard whatever you just
Yeah,
said they
warriors. Yeah.
are. But I feel like, I don't know, I see more and more of people just not being afraid to, I guess, stand up for what they believe in. Whereas there was a time where it was like, I can't say that because, like, I mean, like
Yeah.
you shared, because I'm going to get canceled. I don't know. I do see somewhat a little bit of a shift in that, and I think it is like because of like podcasts and people that are just like, this is a freedom that I have to say, and I think people are just getting a little bit more bold from
Yeah.
what I've noticed.
Yeah, particularly in America. And
Yeah.
in some countries,
Well,
you might get arrested for something that
Yeah.
you say on social
Yeah.
media,
Right.
which is crazy, but yeah.
Yeah. I think it is shifting a little bit, but I don't think it is by any means resolved.
no.
I've heard a lot of like people on the internet, especially a year or two ago, saying cancel culture is over. No, it's not.
Yeah.
No,
It-
it's
yeah.
not. The neo-communists who are behind all that have not given up.
Mm.
They still are trying to create the same, Maoist struggle sessions that they were a few years ago.
Yeah.
And, and it takes people speaking out to, counteract that. And that's one of the reasons, like, Caleb was saying, that there is there is use, there's genuine good of having people in these spaces continuing to say, true things. It's just, I think you just have to be selective,
Yeah.
and I think you have to think strategically, overall, but also you have to be true with yourself. Like I love to argue, but it's not good for me to argue online.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, it's not like sometimes every now and then, yeah, but like the way I'm wired, that's not good for me.
Yeah.
And so, and I just kind of have to be real about that, right? Like God does not call everyone to be a keyboard warrior, right? I think you can
Yeah.
be a keyboard warrior for the Lord if you're doing so reflectively and honestly and
Yeah.
spiritually responsibly, and then you're probably not being a keyboard warrior, but not everyone is, and I don't think people should, just default to that.
Yeah. I completely agree with what you're saying. And to the point that you're making, Court, about the pendulum kind of swinging, I do think that it has corrected in some spaces. I agree with what Jeremy said about it's not resolved, and
Yeah.
also it's the kind of thing that given just enough oxygen, the
Mhm.
flames will come back. I also see the opposite effect, which is in some ways just as damaging, which is
Mhm.
that I noticed that when some of the cancel culture things started to subside for whatever sociological or political reasons or whatever, that some people uh, have taken that opportunity to say the most egregious and outrageous things that they possibly could say.
Yeah.
Right, and so you almost see an overcorrection
Yeah.
where it's like people are just spewing insanity, and I'm not even just talking about inflammatory things. That there's plenty of that. Just go on Twitter if you want to see something inflammatory, um, but also falsehood and
Mhm.
conspiratorial thinking, and and a lot of it is sort of cloaked in this whole idea of we don't trust the powers that be, so here's another narrative. The problem is that the narrative that they bring is often completely devoid of truth,
Mhm.
right,
Yeah.
or substantiation, right? And so, and I worry, I see believers and family members
Yeah.
who
Yeah.
are completely rudderless with respect to discerning being and it's not as of no fault of their own. It's just it's literally a quagmire of
Mm.
there's this massive of information, quote unquote, and how can I what measure can I use to determine what is valuable and
Yeah.
what is not.
Yeah.
That's
Well,
really difficult.
I think falsehood inevitably leads to oppression,
Mm,
for yourself, for others, probably both. And so I think that like constantly trafficking falsehood is going to, make you oppressed and unhappy spiritually and otherwise.
yeah.
But it's so tough because like it goes back to what we were saying about your attention being monetizable, engagement being the primary goal. These platforms and the internet in general nowadays is not set up to encourage or reward true things or genuinely interesting things or nuanced things, but it's encouraged to reward whatever's going to get eyeballs. And as we know, right, what's the number one way to get eyeballs, right? If you're in Walmart, what's the number one way to get our eyeballs? Just start yelling profanities.
Yeah, or scream fire. Yeah.
Or scream fire.
Yeah.
Or claim don't do this, by the way. Don't do any
Don't
of
do
this.
that. Yeah.
Or claim you have a gun or something like that. That's
Yeah.
what, right? Because that'll get you attention.
Certainly will.
And so but does that add value? No, that actively makes everyone's life worse, including yours.
That's
Yeah.
right. Yeah.
I think you need to be careful too. I think there's kind of along the same lines. There's people out there that are looking to trap you into um, ca- into a scenario that you can easily be called a hater or a bigot because you're interacting with them. There's a big controversy. I don't know if y'all have seen it right now, and I don't know how much I should say. I don't want to trap myself, but there's this like huge influencer. I say huge. I don't know. In the trans community
Mhm.
that I guess was trying to get into. I don't know all the specifics. I won't share it all, but I think they were just looking for God and in the Catholic Church, I think, and went on this whole journey to not be trans, and then all of a sudden the Catholic Church accepts them and they are trans, and there's a lot of Christian influencers that are like responding to this.
Yeah.
And I don't know, it just makes me feel like icky in a certain type of way about it all. Kind of going back to like like that's being monetized
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
used, and I don't know. It just makes me feel a certain type of way. I just think there's a lot of that out there.
Yeah.
There is a this is why I say it's such a difficult thing to navigate, because while I believe what I said earlier about, there's value in having voices of truth in these spaces, there are pitfalls and dangers of that as well, which is one of them, and which I have felt myself, which is this compulsion that you have to speak on something,
Yeah.
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
When sometimes you should be slow to speak and swift to hear, right?
Yeah.
Because adding your voice to a cacophony of other voices may actually just contribute to noise
Yeah.
Yes.
instead of actually helping.
Yes.
Right.
And I've fought this myself. I have deleted posts that I was gonna make, and then I've regretted posts that I did make before for this very reason. Not because I thought that there was anything false in them, but thinking actually, this might not actually be worthwhile,
Yeah.
and I might actually be contributing to this. The chaos of this
Mhm.
rather than helping.
Yeah.
And so what the word that Jeremy used earlier of being selective
Mhm.
is the real case, because there have been other occasions where something has happened in the world, or there's something that has captured everyone's attention for legitimate reasons, that I have prayed about it and thought about it, and felt like, hey, actually maybe this is a moment where it would be valuable to
Yeah.
speak.
Yeah.
And that's not for everyone, and I wouldn't suggest that everyone should do that. But I recognize what you're saying about, like, because of the engagement nature, because of the profiteering, and because of all of that, it really does incentivize, compel in some ways, people to engage in ways that may actually not be helpful, even though the intention is good.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think on the subject of influencers especially, so I'm not familiar with the situation you're talking about, but for just approaching it completely blind, on the one hand, being an influencer does invite people to comment on your life and your
Right.
actions.
Right.
On the other hand, just because you're invited to do something or have permission to do it, like Caleb said, doesn't mean that you should.
Yeah.
And like, just objectively, if we look at this, like, pre-social media, someone else's spiritual journey that I don't know personally is no business of mine.
Yeah. Yeah.
And also, I've seen this firsthand. You have people online. This is where it goes back to Reddit, by the way. You can see people doing like narrative crafting in real time, where because of their priors and their prejudices, which everybody has, but because of their prejudices, they will reconstruct a narrative and select events of a situation, which, number one, they don't have access to all the information anyway, because they're just getting it second and third hand. But they'll select certain parts of it and create their narrative and put that out there as if it's, the standard of truth. And if you disagree with it, you're just out of touch with reality. And that never leads to good things. And it just, it's, and if if you have enough familiarity with something to know that that's like a artificial constructed narrative, it drives you nuts to see people like that and run with it and, be mean and evil to each other based on that stuff. And it's one of the reasons why I often have to like disengage, is because
Yeah.
it is tough for me to maintain, a little bit of distance when I'm engaging with stuff like that.
Yeah, because my impulse, and this is just part of this is just my personality. I don't know if you guys have noticed this, but I do like to debate.
I love to debate.
Yeah,
It's
is
just hard for me to do it healthily.
yeah, you can't imagine, right? But this is one reason why I like being friends with Jeremy, is that we spar
Y'all are friends?
sometimes.
Just kidding.
Yeah, you might
Well,
not.
that's up for debate.
Yeah, there you go. I mean, we spar on things, always in a congenial kind of
Yeah.
manner, but I enjoy that, the sparring thing, And
I
then
don't.
now I know, but here's the
At
thing.
all.
If you take that predisposition that I have towards sparring and debate, debate for sport in many cases,
Mhm.
and then you add to it a drop of righteous indignation,
Yes.
right? Where I actually do feel like, I'm actually on the right side of this, and this person's wrong.
Yeah.
I feel this compulsion to I need to set the record straight. And there have been times where I have done this, and I felt like, and still feel in some cases, that it was the appropriate thing to do for the sake of others.
Sometimes, yeah.
Right, where you see someone who's saying something that's false, or they're misleading people in some
Yeah.
way, and it's actually helpful to say, actually, let me set you straight, not for the sake of my own satisfaction, but for the sake of other people who might see this, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes there's warrant for that. But I'll be honest, 8 out of 10 times that's not the case.
Mm.
8 out of 10 times it's let me scratch this itch of me wanting to tell this person straight.
You're a doofus.
Right. Let me
Well,
prove it to you. Yes.
And it's
Yeah.
because I think, and maybe this is one of the takeaways from this is, like, I think most people have a desire for justice.
Yeah.
And when they perceive injustice, right, it bothers them.
Mm.
And that's a problem online, because that same desire for justice is there as strongly as possible. But you're not having face-to-face interactions with these people. So a lot of the social guardrails and remembering this is a person, and, like, maybe they had an awful day and they're just lashing out, and you don't have any of that context, right? Not that excuses it, but
Yeah.
these are not people most of the time that you're interacting with, even if you intellectually acknowledge that.
Yeah.
And so what happens is you just and this is true of everybody, even the ones who are trafficking in lies and just think they're right. Everyone's on this crusade for justice, and there's very little, like, mercy.
Yeah.
And I don't know.
So true.
And if you say that, it's like, well, should we be merciful to lies? And no, that's not. I'm not, like, I think that's kind of mistaking it. It's like, there's very little forgiveness. There's very little mercy. There's very little room for polite disagreement, and it just kind of, I think this is another thing that draws out the worst in people about
Well,
online interactions.
We've done enough episodes that I don't know if I've talked about this before or not. I keep coming up against this problem where it's like I think I'm repeating myself on podcasts, but
Because
that's
you
okay.
talk too much.
Yes, you're right. But whether or not I have said this before, it's worth saying in this context, which is this idea of what I've called digital Gnosticism, right? We've definitely talked about Gnosticism on other episodes, but in this case, what you're describing there is the dematerializing of people through avatars, right? We have this digital medium that we're traversing through that allows me to disconnect the tangible concreteness of this other person.
Yeah.
And because of that, it gives me liberty to do things that I wouldn't do in their presence, that I wouldn't do if I had shaken their hand before the conversation, right? And so I think spiritually this is a dangerous thing for us to do, especially when we're talking about moral matters or theological or spiritual issues. When we are doing it in a context that allows us to turn a blind eye to the incarnational nature of our existence, we are inviting dehumanization, and we're inviting lack of empathy, lack of sympathy, lack of mercy, really lack of the fruits of the Spirit, patience and kindness and gentleness and self-control, and all these things that we are called to have, because we are otherizing the people with whom we are disagreeing, and that's a really scary thing, and it's a thing that I've sensed in my own life. So yeah.
In the words of theologian Mike Tyson, which may be apocryphal.
Yeah.
But social media made y'all way too comfortable with disrespecting people and not getting punched in the face for it.
Wow.
Well, that does sound like
Say
him.
less,
He
Mike
said
Tyson.
he had the other famous quote, which was "Everyone has a plan until they get punched in the mouth."
Lots
Okay.
of quotes about punching from him, which is understandable. But you
He
know,
is an
but
expert.
in its own way, that
About
does get at
biting
the
ears, wasn't that a
Gnosticism
thing?
thing, right?
Yeah, biting ears. Yeah.
In his own way, like the fact that you're not, like even just talking to somebody face to face, like there's some kind of physical risk there,
Yeah,
right? There's some
it's
kind of
true.
like
Oh, yeah.
physical reality to it, and also in consequences, right?
Mhm.
And you could equate this to road rage as well. The fact that everybody's behind a windshield inside of a
Yeah,
car.
yeah,
So
yeah.
anyway, but it just goes back to the point. I think that point about Gnosticism is a great one
Yeah.
because like we were not designed just to interact with others as minds,
Right.
right? Like there's something about physically being present in a space. Community, real community has to be physical, and I think this is one of the reasons why is because if it's not also grounded in shared life physically, then it's bound to get out of control somehow or become toxic or
Yeah.
difficult.
Yeah.
So all of those of you who have stayed at home watching a live stream of church after the pandemic, you need to get up and go to church.
Wow, we got a lot of people catching strays on this podcast.
It's the truth, but what you just said is a
Yeah.
perfect example
Yeah.
of that. Is we were designed for lived community with other people, and so insofar as it's possible for you, go to your local community, your
Yeah.
body of believers. You know the phrase that young people use now, and they're like, "You need to touch grass."
Touch grass.
Some of us literally need to touch grass.
Yeah.
Touch
Yeah.
grass,
Yeah.
shake hands.
Even though I'm
Yeah.
allergic.
You're allergic to grass?
I'm sure I am.
Whatever.
What does that mean?
I'm allergic to everything.
Oh, man. Well, and I think the elephant in the room is that we're saying all of this on social media.
Yeah.
But I think, I think all of our hope for this podcast is because, I mean, let's be honest, we're gonna do it whether we have views or not. I enjoy just getting together with you guys, and I glean for it. But my hope is that whoever encounters our podcast, they just think a little bit more deeply about God and their relationship with Him or lack of relationship with Him.
Yeah.
I think, we just want to point people to Jesus, and this is just a fun way, a hobby for us to do that.
Yeah. And hopefully
but
be a voice of truth.
yeah, it's like kind of like what you said. It's our way of being in the space and not of the space.
Yeah. Yeah.
The interwebs.
Yeah.
So, do y'all have any final thoughts to share, or are we going to wrap this thing up?
I think I good. Yeah.
We're going to wrap this thing up. All right. Well, saying that to say, follow us on social media. We are on all the platforms. Give us a follow and just stay in tune. We just like to have conversations really about anything. And I think this was a really good, practical conversation that I think more Christians need to be having together. So follow us along, and we'll see you next time.